Hello again. Update time on the USS Constellation from the Doomsday Machine. Well, since last time, I've gotten a base coat painted on. I've also put on some copper accents on the insides of the warp nacelles. Thought I'd use this episode to talk about the color I'm using for this particular build. Now, the color of the Classic Enterprise, of course, is a very elusive thing. And, well, I'm building the Constellation here, but looking at a lot of the reference photos, I have a feeling that when that model was built for the episode during Season 2, they probably did not use the same color that they used on the Classic Enterprise. However, I decided rather than going with whatever color it was, looks like it's white, I decided instead to try to see if I could come up with a color that would work, mainly because if this particular model builds the way I want it to, and I'm really satisfied with the work, it may become one of a collection of what I call the red shirts of Starfleet, as it were, where other starships that we have seen in Classic Trek or heard about with various elements of demise, how they were seen and how, if they got destroyed, how they got destroyed. So things like, the Exeter would probably have a set of biohazard decals on the saucer to indicate, okay, it's a plague ship, or, I don't know, the Intrepid with a layer of slime on it because it got eaten by an amoeba, or Excalibur and Lexington from from the Ultimate Computer. Anyway, you get the idea. But the idea being that I would want all those ships to have the same uniform color scheme, because, well, they are all basically about the same class of starship. But anyway, little piece of research which I picked up a few years ago was the Cult TV Man reprint of Paul Newitt's Starfleet Assembly Manuals. The Starfleet Assembly Manuals were originally printed in the 1970s during the start of Trek's popularity. Newitt did 3 of the manuals covering the classic subjects, and I believe a 4th one was done covering the movie Enterprise when it came out. The original books were rather popular sellers, and it was also a very popular bootleg. A few years ago, a good friend of mine, Steve Iverson, aka Cult TV Man, decided to get in touch with Paul and actually negotiated the opportunity to reprint the manuals, because there's still some good techniques in the book to learn from, even though model technology is advanced. Additional articles were written. I even contributed an article related to the construction of the then brand new Polar Lights 1/1000 scale USS Enterprise kit. A couple of minor errors in there that a couple of guys have pointed out to me since then, but, well, the book did its job. But how it relates to this is, if you look at the back cover here, there is actually a color chip that Steve had put on the back of the book, printed with Pantone shades, which is about one of the closest approximations we've been able to find to the original color found on the ship, on the original 11-foot long studio model. Story goes that was a custom mix. Others have found that it was apparently a General Motors color, and it theoretically could still be made. However, the only thing is, a color scheme that works on an 11-foot model may not work quite as well on something that's only about 1.5 feet long, and that's because of scale effect. Light plays on a bigger subject a little different than it plays on a smaller subject. Plus also, using automotive paint, raw automotive paint on a plastic model is not a very desirable idea unless you primer it with a really good primer, because automotive paints are typically hotter solvent than what most model paints are. But anyway, there was an article written in the book, and then there's also an update printed on Steve Iverson's, on the Cult TV Man website, which discusses paint formulas that you can use to duplicate the original 11-foot long studio model color. And I decided to follow that. One of the things that Newitt determined is Tamiya JN Gray in the small bottles, specifically color XF12. It's a gray with a slight greenish characteristic. JN standing for Japanese Navy, is a pretty close out of the bottle match to one of two color chips that he consulted Richard Dayton on, specifically them being colors that he could find at Walmart at the time. But anyway, he determined that XF12 is a pretty close color, although it does need to be lightened a little bit to work on an 11-foot long studio model, and also if you want to do it on a smaller model, you have to lighten it even further. So one of the things I did, first thing I did was I painted the whole model in the original JN Gray, and it's a pretty cool color, but it looked way dark for my uses. So I decided to do the scientific method. Got a piece of cardstock there with various shades of gray on it, all JN Gray with various percentages of white. I actually wrote on the back what the percentages are: full strength 10%, 20, 30, 40, etc. I also flat coated this, and then I also gloss coated it so I could see how the light looked in various sheen levels. There you go, you can see the reflection really nice. So my determination, I figured probably about 25-30% lightening, 25-30% white added to the mix would give me something close to the color I'm looking for. And well, I painted it that way. Basically, I took a fresh bottle of XF12 and added a certain amount of white to it until I was happy. I like formulas like this because the less colors you have to mix, the better. I do not like, quote, as I call them, witch's brews formulas of 3 or more colors, because trying to duplicate them is always hard to do. It takes a lot of work. Just doing 2 colors, if you're a little off, just add the color that you're off on. If you try to do it with 3 or you try to do it with 4, it doesn't work quite as effectively. But I ended up with the following color that you see on the model right here. It's rather a nice shade of gray. If I was doing a 1/1000 scale polar light ship, I'd probably add maybe a little bit more white to the mix to tone it down just a little bit. And when the 1/350th scale Enterprise comes out, I'll probably darken the mixture as well, since we're talking about a model that's going to be, well, essentially double the size of this. But I've got a color that I like pretty well. Well, so once I got the color mixed to the level I wanted, after building it, I compared it to one of my reference photos. This is specifically out of this is Star Trek Fan Club issue number 132, printed circa 1999-2000. Article written by a good friend of mine named William McCullers. Haven't seen him in years. He used to run a really good webpage called the IDIC page with some of the best pictures of the Enterprise studio models that you're ever going to find. But they got this nice shot here of Dayton and Company after they got the Enterprise model built, showing pretty good shot of the color of the ship in normal daylight conditions as opposed to studio lighting, and, well, comparing it with what I've got, I'm pretty happy with the result. Had to make some additional touch-ups and stuff during the build process. Color I used for the deflector mount and the vents on the pylons is, to me, a dark copper. Bright copper would probably work as well, but I wanted something that was a little more toned down. I still may change my mind. I can always remask and repaint those if I don't like them. Other thing that I will point out as well is I also added a little more battle damage to the model. Let me focus in. Specifically, checking a couple of my photos, my jagged cut on the front of this port side pylon here didn't go quite far enough back, so I attacked it with a Dremel tonight and opened up a hole, and in there I stuffed some more busted pieces of conduit to more closely match what I found in the photos. Kind of looks like spaghetti. I also added another piece to the front of the other pylon. I call this the Piso Sprue damage piece because it essentially looks like one of those T-shaped pieces of sprue cut down to give it the appearance that it's a piece of debris. And, well, it obviously looks like a piece of sprue, but hey, it's in the reference photos. I figure, what the hey, I might as well put it there, and if anybody asks, I'll say, well, that's what it looks like, so that's why I put it there. But when I get to the paint phase, I'll try to disguise it a little better. But just need to do some trim paint and spots. Other than that, once I get that done, a little bit of detail painting, I'll gloss coater, decaler, seal the decals, and then do the major weathering. Some minor weathering is going to begin shortly, but next time you see it, it'll hopefully look a lot more done.